Hey everyone, before I start this video, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who stopped by and supported my videos. I honestly just love talking about Genshin lore, and I'm glad there are other people like me who love to chat about it, so I really appreciate all the kind words and conversations on the lore. Also, I just want to say that I'm currently on vacation, so today's video isn't going to be super lore related, but not to worry, we will be back to the regular lore and theories once I'm back. Out of all the games I've played so far over the past few years, Genshin Impact has probably been the game with the best lore. The narrative and story of Genshin is so intricate, detailed, and it has so many levels and themes, it really is super impressive. I remember when I first played the game, which was around Albedo's release, I was taken aback by the quality and thoughtfulness behind the lore. However, at the same time, it was definitely super confusing as there are so many layers to peel back. So today, I wanted to talk about the best resources to help you get into the lore of Genshin. I'll try to do this in a holistic manner that's helpful to all players. So whether you're new or a veteran, here are the best resources for Genshin lore and ways to approach the lore in an easy and efficient manner. Now this is gonna sound really dumb and obvious, but the best and most direct source of Genshin lore is the game itself. However, in my opinion, if you're trying to get the most out of the lore, there are 3 areas you should focus on. These 3 key areas are the quests, the character voiceover lines, and in-game items, which includes weapons, artifacts, and character ascension materials. If you're a veteran of the game, you've probably noticed that I've left out the lore books off this list, and this is for a reason that I'll get into later on in the video, so please just bear with me. I'm sure we can all agree that quests are extremely important to the overall narrative of Genshin, especially if you're trying to learn more about the lore. The Archon quests and character story quests are undoubtedly the prime source of information for lore. However, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people tend to neglect the side quests and the world quests. I suppose the reason for this is simply because side quests tend to be pointless in most MMOs and video games, but this is just not the case with Genshin. In most scenarios, the side quests and world quests are actually central to the overall lore of Genshin Impact. An example of a world quest that contributes a significant amount to the lore of Genshin is the Moon-Bathed Deep quest. In that questline, we learn more about the origins of Watatsumi Island and learn about a whole nother city that lies below the island itself. Not only does this quest serve as a teaser for a future area, but it also helps us get a clearer understanding as to why the people of Watatsumi Island worship Urabashi over the Raiden Shogun. Another great example is the Sakura cleansing ritual. In this quest, we learn about the Kitsune Saigu and the corruption that befell the land during the Cataclysm. The events that are referenced during the questline are central to the history of Inazuma and directly influence the way the Raiden Shogun rules the region. I could go on and on here with examples, but I hope this drives the point of how important the side quests are to developing the story of Genshin. Now, another great source of lore in the game are the character voiceover lines. For a long time, I actually overlooked this aspect to the game, but when I finally took a look in there, I realized there's so many lore bits that you can get from the voiceovers. For example, the Raiden Shogun has several lines talking about her past, and she even talks about Scaramouche. So it's a really great place to get a better understanding of the history of Teyvat, but also for gathering insight into how the characters think and feel. Obviously, a major issue here is that you do have to unlock the characters to get access to the voiceovers, which can get really frustrating, especially if you're a free-to-play or a low spender. But there is a workaround which I will get into later in this video. Lastly, items are a really great place to get started with the lore of Genshin. In many of the weapons, there are references to other regions or events that occurred in the past. Also, some of the backstories behind the weapons give really important insights into the history of Teyvat. The next best items that build upon the lore of the game are the artifacts. It's crazy how many Easter eggs MiHoYo has embedded into these items. For example, the Thundering Fury set, which was available since the release of the game, has been teasing Surumi Island and the Thunderbird. And I think this trend will continue with the artifacts, so as future sets get released, definitely take a look because there may be Easter eggs or teasers for future content. Last but not least, character ascension materials are really great for building upon the lore of Genshin. Whether the items are collected from mobs from the open world or taken from a domain, these items contain really interesting information that expands on the story of the game. However, the issue with using items to learn more about the story is that the lore can be locked behind transactions, which sucks. Also, with character ascension materials and artifacts, you may not necessarily need every set or item, so in those cases, you'd be missing out on some pieces of lore, especially if you didn't farm for those respective items. But given these obstacles to access the lore of Genshin in the game, how can one get more involved with the lore? Well, the resource that fixes all these problems is the Genshin Impact Wiki, which I will link down in the description box below. Because a lot of the lore is locked behind items and characters, the Wiki is a great place to access this lore without destroying your wallet. I know for me personally, I rarely roll on weapon banners, so when it came to the lore for the 5-star weapons, this was an invaluable resource for me. Also, this is really great for when there are domains and artifacts that you simply don't need to farm. Remember earlier when I talked about the lore books? Well, the Genshin Wiki is the best place to access the lore books for several reasons. In the game, there are some lore books that require you to go to specific places and perform specific actions to access the books. Also, to get the full lore from a book, you have to make sure you collect all the volumes of it. Obviously, this isn't very time efficient, so it's nice to have the Wiki as an alternative resource. I also want to add that the game's archives don't have a search function, so if you're looking for entries on a specific topic, you're probably going to have to go through each item on the list till you find what you need. The nice thing about the Genshin Wiki is that you can search for the topic you like and poof, you have instant and direct access to it. So, for example, let's just say I want to find information on the Thunderbird. Well, in the game, the Thunderbird's lore is scattered throughout quests, weapons, and artifact sets. If you look this up on the Wiki though, it's all consolidated in one page, so you don't have to look in several places for that information. And my favorite part about all of this is that there is a reference section at the bottom of the page, and this section shows you where the lore and information is pulled from, so you can investigate each source of information for greater detail. I can't tell you how many times this has sent me down a lore rabbit hole, which has been great and super useful for expanding my knowledge on the game. And possibly my favorite thing about the Wiki is that there is a page dedicated to the entire history of Teyvat. Now, MiHoYo hasn't confirmed the full timeline of events, but the contributors to this page have done their best to reconstruct a rough timeline of events. So for those of you who want to have a holistic picture on the history of Teyvat, this is probably the best intro you can get. I'll link it down below as well if you want to check it out. It's really great stuff. I highly recommend y'all check it out. Another great source of lore is YouTube. Genshin's lore is really multi-dimensional, and by this I mean that the lore often gathers inspiration from the real world. Specifically, the writers for the game seem to reference mythology and cultures from different civilizations. The great thing about Genshin lore YouTubers is that a lot of them do a ton of research to help draw connections to these real-world inspirations for the lore. Additionally, YouTube is also a great place to catch up on Genshin theories and analyze what could occur in the future of the game, especially since MiHoYo loves to throw Easter eggs everywhere in their game. Something I think a lot of people tend to overlook though is the comments section of Genshin lore YouTube videos. I highly recommend that you all check out the comments because there are people who post really interesting facts and lore bits that may have been overlooked in the video itself. The final source of all things lore is the Genshin lore subreddit. The thing I love about this subreddit is that the community is so great. Everyone is super helpful and open to talking about various theories and lore bits. There are a lot of posters in there that do extremely detailed analysis of the lore within Genshin. It's a really great place to ask questions and get really meaningful analysis on symbols and themes within the lore. However, there is one thing I just want to put as a disclaimer. When going through the subreddit, there is a chance you may run into leaks. In general, the OPs will put a disclaimer if they reference leaked material. So for those of you who don't want to see leaks, you may want to peruse the subreddit with caution or avoid it completely if that's something you don't want to see. And these are all the sources that I personally use to explore the lore of Genshin. If you guys have other sources of information, be sure to post it down below. I hope this was helpful for those of you who are trying to get more involved with Genshin lore and theory. And if you like this video, please sub to my channel. I like to make videos on Genshin lore. Also, all my socials are linked down below, so please check them out if you're interested. And I hope to see y'all in the next video. Peace!